All right, time for Wellness Wednesday. With winter coming, of course, colder weather and shorter days have some Canadians feeling sad. According to the Canadian Psychology Association, approximately 15% of Canadians will experience some form of seasonal affective disorder in their lifetime, especially youth and women. But despite less hours of sunlight, we may have some light at the end of the tunnel if you're looking to improve your mood and survive this potential seasonal depression. So here with more is psychotherapist Chioma Effigedia. Thank you for joining us again, Chioma. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
This can be a troublesome time of year for people. Shorter hours of daylight, no vitamin D, kind of that sense of it's always dark. What are the symptoms that people should be looking for in themselves or others when it comes to this?
So one of the symptoms that people will often find is they're seeing themselves have low mood, lack of motivation, they're not doing the tasks that they usually like to do, and they're finding themselves isolating. Those are some of the top indicators that maybe you might be going through seasonal affective disorder.
So if you notice that in somebody you care for or love or even a friend, what are some of the ways you could approach that to sort of, maybe probe the conversation, kind of check in on someone almost?
Yeah, that's really a good point. One of the things that you can do to kind of check in with somebody is finding whether it's a morning walk with your loved ones or like maybe it's with the kids, especially if you have teenagers. It's saying like, encouraging that morning walk routine just to kind of get some of that sunlight going on, right? That could be a really important step to check in with our loved ones. And then on top of it, we're also building that connection, lessening that isolation, right? So those are some things.
Yeah, I get the darkness kind of envelops us early, and then early in the mornings and early in the evenings, it seems here. So kind of that there's that cloud, it seems, over some people. So when you're talking to people yourselves, like, what do you try to do to get them to change the mindset, or how do you describe what it is to try to help them deal with seasonal affective disorder?
Yeah, so one of the ways that somebody can do that is using a technique called focusing. And really that's helping you like reframe some of your thoughts and your feelings. And it's really being able to check in with what that feeling is coming up, how you can reframe that. And sometimes by exploring that, you can really say like, what is the need here that's not being met? And say, okay, can I make a request to make that need met, to really help with some of those mood changes, and say, okay, maybe I'm feeling a little bit low, maybe it's because I'm feeling a little bit more isolated, or I'm having that lack of motivation. So that's something that I usually do within my practice when I'm working with my clients.
One thing I've heard about is people with these lights, the sort of, I suppose, kind of fake vitamin D almost. Do you recommend something like that?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we can do is have, even if it's by our work desk, having the light exposures, they are usually high wattage light to really mimic not having as much daylight, right? So we can do this at our desk. If somebody doesn't have a desk, you can put this by your bedside before night. And for those who might not invest in light, even if you sit by a south-facing window, you're able to get a lot more light exposure and kind of get some of that vitamin D that really you don't get around this time of the year.
It's almost like you need to prescribe sunshine.
Literally,
yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? So is this something that if people are dealing with this, perhaps struggling with it in certain cases, that really it's just a matter of a change of scenery can really help? Or is it the change of seasons, like it more light just kind of helps ultimately?
So it definitely is the change of season, right? I don't think that's something that we can neglect, is the fact that we're having shorter days, we're getting less sunlight, right? We're isolating a little bit more, the weather's getting cold, so people are typically withdrawing. So it does have to deal with the seasonal changes and how it's impacting like the change in our sleep cycle, or the change in like how our system usually works when we're getting enough sun in like the summer months.
Chioma, how serious can this get for some people?
This can get pretty serious, especially for people who have already like a prehistory of depression or anxiety. This can really increase it with the seasonal changes. Those are some things that if you already have anxiety or depression or any types of mood disorders, you want to be really intentional with tracking your moods around this time and seeing like if there's any fluctuations or changes, and then really being able to reach out to your loved ones or like a mental health professional like myself to get that support.
Yeah, absolutely. That seems to be what is necessary. Listen, Chioma, appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us again this morning on Wellness Wednesday. Good to see you again.
Thank you for having me.